This video is going to show you how to refresh your automotive leather interior in your very own driveway. Okay, so today we're going to do a little video on I think a pretty special car. It's a 2017 GLS 63 AMG. Real nice shape, of course. However, it's got a lot of leather. It's got leather seats, leather door skins all the way around. It's got leather dashboard. Underneath it's all leather, and of course you can see a little bit of the soil there. Let's take a look at the seats. As you can see here, we're starting to get a little bit of breakdown of the leather finish and the dye and the protective top coat. This is normal because you're getting in and out of the seat all the time. These seats too have really high bolsters to keep you in your seat. I mean, I guess if you're really giving her. But see here how it's starting to break down a little bit. Basically what it is, it's just wearing. That's normal wear and tear. If we look here, I don't know if you can see it. See right there, there's some, depends on the angle that we put it on. You can see a little bit of wear in the finish. And of course, you know, when you're cleaning the seats will clean up really well, and they'll remove some of the patina. This actual finish is supposed to be more of a matte, but when the soil builds up and you buff the leather, they start to look a little bit more shiny. If we want to take a look at the back, see how the back is a little bit more matte per se. I mean, they're in pretty good shape. They just need to be cleaned. You know, you can blow out these little pieces of dirt that are stuck in the perforations. Back seat's pretty good. We have, of course, the other rear seat right here. That's all in good shape. Nothing really needs to be done. Let's take a look here. Yeah, I mean, these seats, you know, a little bit, maybe a little bit on the door skins. Door skins, again, are all leather. But of course, the worst part is always the driver's side. So see here, it's starting to get a little bit shiny. That's soil buildup here. We're going to remove that, of course, with our cleaner. And then we're going to take a look at the seat here. You can see that there's a lot of patina and soil in the seat. You can see there's a little bit of soil or something going on there. The bolster's in pretty good condition. Now right here, this is very common, the bolster right here, because you're always getting in and out of the car, is going to take the most wear. Now, if you want to make sure that this never happens, what you want to do is you want to bring the seat back, you want to exit the vehicle, you want to get back into the vehicle, and then of course the seat pulls up. But a lot of cars, they don't even have that. This one has a little bit of that, where the steering wheel moves back and this moves back a little bit. But I mean, if you really want to keep your bolster intact, don't even get out of it that way. Make sure it's all the way back, sit in the car, bring it up, you know. But this is just normal wear and tear. I mean, we're not going to be able to fix this with cleaning it. This actually needs dye. So what we're going to do is we also have a kit where we're going to you know, put the dye onto the seat without getting it into the stitching, because the stitching is white on this car. So it's a little bit tricky. All that means is you need to spend a little bit more time on it. So nothing's impossible. Everyone can do anything. Sometimes you just need to spend a little bit more time on it. Here too, we want to get that good and clean with our cleaner. Okay. Yeah, and the steering wheel, I think we did a video on that once before. I'm not sure if we published it yet. We may have, where this right here is sort of like an Alcantara suede finish, and it gets gummed up from your hands after a while, and we show you how to clean it, make it fluffy again. So that's pretty nice. And again, this is all leather underneath here. Okay, so you need a good leather cleaner, and the leather cleaner that you want, of course, is right here. So this is the leather cleaning and protection kit. Okay, that'll do this car, whoops, probably about probably 8 to 10 times, or 6 to 8 times, or something like that. Get a 27-ounce cleaner. You get the spray-on protector afterwards. You get your rubber gloves and sponge applicators. All the instructions are right there. So if you had this car and it didn't have any of that wear in it, you would just basically clean them up, clean the white stitching really well, okay? Clean the white stitching really well. Let it dry till you're happy with it. If you're not happy with it, clean it again. Let it fully dry. Then when you're happy with it, then you want to put the sealer protector on it. So it's going to seal all, of course, the clean leather in. If you clean something and you leave it dirty and you apply the protector, you're going to seal the dirt in. So in the areas where there's worn leather, we're going to use our medium 4-ounce leather dye repair kit right here. Of course, it comes with the cleaner, which is exactly the same as this, but this is a larger size, okay? Comes with a 4-ounce cleaner. It comes with a 4-ounce bottle of leather dye, and the color on this one is 5091 black, I think it is. Okay, so of course it gives you the sponges, the cloth for cleaning. This is your cleaner right here, the cloth. Then what you would do is you would sponge the dye on. Okay, make it look pretty, let it dry, and then when everything's good and dry and clean, you would spray your sealer onto a sponge and then just wipe the area down. We're going to go over all that on the video. And also too, if you did have, let's say, you know, deep cracks, rips, or tears, this is what you want right here. You want the 1-ounce leather repair filler kit. It's 1 ounce of the leather filler. There's the instructions right there. Of course, if you need a bigger amount, we have a 2-ounce, which is of course double the size. But we're not going to be using this today because we don't have any deep rips or tears. What you want to do in life is you want to clean and protect to avoid using this product, because when you use the protector, all the wear and all the soil and all the abuse sits on the protective top coat, okay? Once this breaks down and once you get down into the leather dye and then the dye wears off, that's when you need this product, which is the leather dye, okay? So if you get a brand new truck or you get a brand new car and you're always, you know, every 6 months, you know, or every 3 months cleaning it gently with our cleaner and applying the protective top coat once every 3 months, 6 months, or a year, depending on how much you use the car, you'll never need a leather dye repair kit because your leather dye will always look fantastic. Again, once you start using the dyes and everything to fix different areas, that's fine, everything's going to look great. But some people let it go to the point where you have cracks, rips, and tears, and that's when you need our leather repair filler kit to fill in that deep crack, rip, or tear, and then let it dry, and then apply, of course, the dyes on top and then the sealer on top for full and complete protection. So that's what we're going to do right now. We're going to start to clean the leather seats. Okay, getting a little windy out here, but no problem. This is your leather cleaning and dusting cloth right here. We're going to open this up. Okay, so we can work with it. We got our cleaner. We're going to spray the cleaner directly onto... Oh, is that working? Oh, we got it off. We got to put it on spray. There we go. There we go. So in this case, instead of spraying it on here like this and just wiping the seat down, which is what we usually do, when we have a lot of patina soil, we're going to spray the cleaner directly on that. We're just going to massage it in. I should be wearing a glove. What are you going to do? I'll put it on later. So we're just going to massage it in a little bit. We're going to put some cleaner onto the cloth like this. And now we're just going to gently sort of massage. We're going to gently massage. You can go counterclockwise like this, and then you can go clockwise like that. But what you want to do is you just want to massage the dirt out of the leather. That's what you want to do. Okay. If it still looks shiny there, see when it's wet, that means, now look at the amount of soil coming out of there. A lot of that looks blue, and what that is most likely jean dye from your jeans getting in and out of the car. Okay, you can see how much is taken out. It's starting to get into the stitching too. Don't want that. So make that wet again. Pick a different area on the cloth, a dry area on the cloth, and then just go gently like this. And then flush that out, clean that out. Just like that, no big deal. See? And look at that, like that is huge. Just from that little spot. Okay. And of course here, see how the leather's starting to look a little bit more matte? Okay, that's because it's getting cleaner, okay? Might have to do, again, this was the worst area, so might have to do a little bit more. Don't worry about perforated seats. You're not putting enough on there to do any sort of damage to anything. Same with our leather dyes. I mean, as long as you wipe them on, everything's good. If you were to pour the bottle and it would soak all down into the foam and all the rest of the stuff, I mean, yeah, you might have a little bit of a problem, but no one's going to do that. You know, you're just applying the dyes to the surface of the perforations. It'll be fine. Okay. So what we're going to do is get it the best you can. Whoops. Some leaves coming in. Do it the best you can and then let it dry. And then that'll show you how well, but you can see the stitching starting to get a lot lighter. Starting to really look right again, which is what you want. You know, let's do this area of the seat. Just get it good and clean. The reason why we're putting it on is because we want to push it down into the soil. Okay, I can feel it on my hand. The soil, it's kind of slippery. If I had a glove on, I wouldn't be able to explain that to you. Okay, so, whoops, it's hard working with one hand here. So now we're just going to put a little bit of cleaner onto the cloth, onto a clean area of the cloth. And we're just going to gently sort of massage. You know, I'm not using a lot of pressure here, and of course, you can see the amount of soil coming off. I mean, just a lot's coming off on this seat. So let's do the whole seat now. It's hard working in the sun. You know, we kind of want to show you what's going on, but generally I wouldn't recommend working in the sun because what happens is it ends up drying on you before you have a chance to wipe it away. So we'll try to work a little bit quickly here for you. So here it is right here. There's the cloth, the clean area. And we'll make that wet. And then we'll get this clean area, just like that. Right? And then we're just going to wipe away. There we go. And what you want to do is when you're wiping it, just pretend you're sort of massaging all that cleaner into the soil. Gently. You can go this way, you can go this way. You know, you might have to do it a bunch of times until it stops. But look at that, it's mostly jean dye on there. Okay. So let's let this dry and see what it looks like and see if we're going to have to do it again. I'm sure we're probably going to have to do it again because that's what I would recommend. It's air drying as we speak here. Okay. Let's just do this area down here. And you can do it all in and around here as well. Again, our cleaner doesn't have any oils or waxes. We believe in just cleaning the leather as good as possible. You don't need an oil or a wax. I mean, there is such thing as a conditioner, but we always only recommend conditioners to be used every 5 to 7 years, or if you're living in Arizona or something like that, you can apply it, you know, once or twice a year. You don't want to over oil the hides, because if you over oil the hides, the sun is going to superheat the leather, causing them to shrink. So there's a give and take to everything, and it all depends on the situation that you're in. Also here we can see where it looks like we need to clean this. Again, just sit here and just sort of massage the soil off of the surface of the leather. That's what we're doing. That's the plan. You don't need to scrub and rub the leather like crazy because you're putting undue wear on the finish. You just want to remove that soil, so don't forget that. It's all about removing the soil. And see here, we've pretty much done that as it's drying. There was a good amount of soil right there. Now we can take a look at the armrest. Looks a little bit shiny, of course, which it should. Put it there, massage it. massage it, get the cloth like this. See, new area. And we're just going to gently massage this. Shouldn't be that dirty. Or who knows, maybe it will be. We'll find out. Yeah, not bad, you know. So what we're going to do is just, gently wipe all this down. You can even wipe this with your leather cleaner. Again, it doesn't have any oils. And let's move the cloth out of the way, and you can already see that it's already starting to look really nice. I mean, these areas here are still a little bit wet. It's already starting to look really, really nice. It's starting to get that matte sort of look back, which is, I guess, what you want. But this is what we need to fix. We need to fix all this with our leather dyes. So what we're going to do is we're just going to clean this whole, you've seen enough of cleaning. We're just going to make sure we're going to clean this whole seat up, and then we'll be back to try to tackle this, which is starting to apply the leather dyes. We'll be back. Okay, so we are back. You can see this is the amount of soil that pretty much came out of the seat. The seat looks fantastic. I mean, look at that. The seat looks great. The stitching is nice and white. Okay, of course, we still got to fix this. Doesn't look as bad now, but if we go like this, all the wear, of course, will sort of come back out, but there is wear there. We're going to address that, okay? And of course, here you can see this, all this soil actually came out of the handrail, which is crazy. But as you can see here, that door skin looks great. The stitching, white stitching on here that was soiled, basically matches all of the white stitching that's really never touched. Looks really, really nice. That isn't even protected yet. That's just cleaned with the cleaner. Okay, the cleaner just does an amazing job. That's one thing. I mean, the cleaner, everyone loves our cleaner because it just is so effective at what it's supposed to do, and that's just clean the leather. So now what we're going to do is, what we did is we waited for this to all dry. We want to make sure that it's good and dry, and it is, before we apply the leather dyes. We'll be back. The other thing too, remember I was saying something about you should have gloves on when you use the cleaner. The cleaner is not going to really hurt you or anything like that, but it does have different surfactants in it to try to remove any oil. So even in a headrest area here, if you have hair product or if you have oils that are in your hair and you get them on here, our cleaner will do a really good job of removing those surface oils. However, we can't make our cleaner so strong that it's going to be a stripper, okay? So what'll end up happening is if you get it on your hands are going to feel a little bit dry because it's taking all the oils out of your hands. So that's why we recommend using gloves when you have our cleaner, because if you're going to go like this and massage all the cleaner into the soil, your hands are going to feel kind of dry, which mine do right now. So if I would have worn gloves, I wouldn't have had that problem. No problem. I'll just put some hand cream on. No big deal. But as you can see, again, the seat looks fantastic. All we need to do is start to, apply some dye. We're probably going to put about 2 or 3 coats. The thicker the amount of dye that you put in these areas, the longer they're going to last and the more protective they're going to be, in the future, of course, getting in and out here. You just don't want to put a little bit of dye. That'll just fix it up. If you put 2 or 3 or 4 coats of dye in this area, it's just going to last that much longer. So we'll be back. Okay, so here's our leather dye. It's a 4-ounce ball. That's enough to do, 2 large front seats and a center console. And if you want to do some door skins or something like that, you have more than enough to put a couple coats, of course, on these seats. If you want to do the whole interior, let's say the whole interior was just a mess and you want to do a whole interior, you would probably need our 8-ounce bottle. Even the flies want it. Our 8-ounce bottle. Which is twice the size of this. This is a 4-ounce, okay? And again, this color is our 5091 black. So you want to make sure you shake it up. And we're going to open it up. And then we got to get into that. You'll be able to do this with one hand? I don't think so. We'll do it this way. Never done it this way before. There we go, we popped it into there. And we're going like this. And what we can do Okay, it's a lock top cap. Now we can close it up. It's not going to spill anywhere. So what we're going to do here with this stitching is we can either freehand it. So what we can do is we can put some dye on this sponge like this, and we can sort of freehand it like that. And we can do that. Or we can get some tape like this, and we can just put it on there. Whoops. Just get it a little bit over top of the stitching, like that. You know, and take your time a little bit. You know, for me, it's a little bit tricky doing it with one hand, but if I can do it with one hand, you can definitely do it with both. How's that? All right. So there's that, and then we can take another piece of tape. All right. And see, just like that. Just make sure you protect that stitching, or even if it's not going to totally protect you, at least it's going to show you exactly, you know, where the line is. But what you can do is you can wipe the dyes on like this. You would just get a little bit of dye and just sort of wipe it on like that, so away from the stitching. You can do it that way. All right. So what we're going to do, let's do it this way just to see, and we'll freehand it somewhere else, no big deal. But just what it comes down to is just don't get the dye on that stitching. So what we're going to do is we're going to put the tape up here and make sure everything's good, and we'll be back to start applying the dye right there. Okay, so we're back. As you can see here, if you take a look, you know, you can just maybe barely see. It's pretty well covered up, but we'll still, you know, this tape sometimes, depending on, of course, the environment, the temperature, can. But anyways, we know that we should stay away from it anyways, okay? The other thing is, too, is you can get a pair of scissors, you can cut up your sponge, and you can make something like this. That's what we use for more fine detailed work. So you can sort of go like this, and you could freehand it. It's a lot easier to freehand if you so wish, because everyone's different. You know, sometimes some things are difficult for other people and some things are easy for other people. So what you want to do is shake the bottle, and we're going to put some dye onto the sponge. Yeah, we're going to drip it too. Oh boy. Anyhow, it's hard to do this with one hand. So what we're going to do is we're just basically going to apply the dye just into the areas that are the most worn. Just like that. Just like that. And we're going to let that dry. And it's pretty much drying right before us as well. And then we're going to put on a heavier coat of dye by dabbing the dye on. So right now we're just going to let this dry. We'll be back in a minute. Okay, so we're back. As you can see, this is dried up. We put a little bit more dye onto the sponge, and what we're going to do is just dab it on a little bit heavier. And dabbing means to just put on as much as you can without it running. You don't want it running. And some people might say, oh gee, the dye that you're using looks a little bit darker than the original. Well, that's right. You know why? Because this was the actual color when the car was new, and over the course of 4 years now, or 3 or 4 years, the interior of this car has faded to a certain degree. So this is what the interior looked like when it was brand spanking new. And that's what we're going to do. We're going to make the car look like the day it was purchased. Because all leather fades and oxidizes. Darker leathers will look darker after applying the dye, and lighter colored leathers will look lighter, because when you apply a light colored dye to existing, it's going to look brighter, cleaner, newer. So chances are it's going to look a little bit brighter. And of course, darker colored leather, it's going to look a little bit deeper, richer, darker, because it's dark, and that's the way it looked when it was new. So we're going to let this dry, and we'll be back to do the bottom. But we're probably going to dab on another 2 coats, but we're going to let this dry. We'll be back. Okay, so we're back again. A little bit more dye on the sponge, and in the area where you got the most wear, you just want to dab the dyes on, just like this. Just like that. And of course, if your leather was a different color, or if this was black or something like that, of course, or I mean, what am I saying, black? It is black. If it was white and then this was beige or something, you'd have to make sure that you don't get the dye on here. But I mean, since it's all black, you're not going to see anything. It's not going to make a difference. All right, so again, we put it on a little bit heavier, as you can see. We're going to let this dry. As long as it's not running, it'll dry beautifully. Okay, so we'll be back. Okay, while this is still drying, let's get going on this. It looks like our tape isn't doing that well. May need some stickier tape, or I don't know, but it doesn't seem to be working too well. So that's okay. What we're going to do is we're going to freehand it with our triangle here. Okay, so let's go into the areas here that need the most product, staying away from, of course, the tape. We know where the tape is, no big deal. And if we get it on the stitching, we'll address that later, but we're not going to do it now. You'd want to actually address it probably when it's dry, because when it's dry, you could effectively pick some of the dye out of the fibers of the white stitching. However, if you want to wipe it while it's wet, you're just going to push the dye deeper into the weave or the fibers of the stitching. So I would just do what you need to do now, and if you did get something on there, we'll figure it out later, no big deal. So as for now, we're just going to make sure that we put the dyes on heavier. See how we're dabbing them on heavier? Just as long as they're not running. Okay, this was the area that had the most abuse, and also too, it's also going to fortify and strengthen the stitching in this area. Before, the stitching was starting to unravel and start to wear. If you apply the dye on here and you just sort of go like this, you're going to glue all of the stitching sort of down with our dyes. Okay. So we're just going to let this dry, and of course that dry, and we'll be back. It's pretty much just, you know, over and over again, the same sort of thing. You know, again, we clean the seat. If there was any oils or heavy body oils or anything on the leather that the cleaner can't remove, we recommend like a rubbing alcohol or lacquer thinner or something like that to get it good and clean. You're just basically getting the dyes and keep applying them over and over again. The more coats that you put on these areas, the stronger and more wear lasting, and the longer they're going to last. And then when everything looks great and everything's dry, then we get to put our sealer on. It's going to fully and completely protect the finish that we just put on. So we'll be back. Okay, let's look to see how things are coming along here. What we did is we got rid of the tape, because the tape, it depends on the environment you're in. I mean, out here it's probably about, I don't know, maybe 75 degrees, kind of windy. you know, it depends with tape. If you're not in a windy environment, chances are it's going to stick. But if you just have a little bit of that gusting wind, it's going to take off on you. So what we did is we just freehanded it. We had the triangular piece and we put the seat back, you know, and we got comfortable. And we just went there and we just sort of freehanded it. Took our time and freehanded it. Applied a couple coats of dye on here and a couple coats of dye on here, as you can see. All right, so what we want to do now is, of course, in this area here, see how you can see here where it's starting to get a little bit worn right there? Well, if you continue to let that wear, it will actually wear through the leather and actually rip open through time. The rest of the seat, again, still in pretty good shape. We don't really see too much other than right here. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to put a coat of dye onto the seating area. We're probably going to freehand this, put a little bit onto here just to sort of blend it in. I think we're pretty much good. We got in, we did the areas. They're a little bit shinier now. When we put the sealer on, it'll matte them down a little bit. You apply the sealer and you sort of wipe it away. And again, through, you know, getting in and out of your car and everything, it'll match the seats probably within a week or so. But again, the black that we provide is going to look a little bit newer and richer and blacker because that's the way it is. These seats again are between 3 and 4 years old, and you will get a little bit of fade in them. But when we're finished, it's going to look fantastic. We'll be back. Okay, we're back. We're going to do the seat. We shook the bottle of dye up. We got a fresh sponge. We're just going to put the dye onto the sponge, just like this. It should be plenty. And we're just going to wipe it in. Go like this. Okay, and we're just going to basically wipe it in. We're not going to get onto the stitching. We're just going to freehand it. As you can see here, it's not that difficult. This area where, of course, it was worn, you're just wiping it in. Going to get a little bit more dye, put it onto the sponge, just like that. It should be plenty. Just little by little at a time. You know, again, if you had a lot of wear or something like that, I'd be telling you to do something different. But in this sort of scenario, we're just going to put a thin coat on. That's more than enough dye. Dye goes a long way. The only time you start using more dye is when you're doing a color change or you have very worn and faded leather. Other than that, the dye goes a long way. Get a little bit more because it's soaking it up. That's okay. It's actually quite soft leather. Again, too, with leather, depending on the type of leather if you have very soft leather, it will draw more dye into it. No doubt about it. And if it's perforated like this, yeah, it'll suck some more dye in there as well. Not going to wreck the seat. Nothing's going to happen. The only time that would happen is if you really flooded it, like really flooded it. And we're not doing that here. We're just wiping onto the surface. Okay. Okay. You can sort of wipe that down like that if you want. It'll dry up real nice. So we'll be back when that's dry. Okay, as you can see, the seat is looking fantastic. Feels great. Feels like new leather. Still has to be protected. But what we're going to do now is we're just going to sort of blend it into this because it really doesn't need anything. It just needs to blend it in so everything matches beautifully. We'll be back. Okay, as you can see, we applied a little bit here. It's still drying. Again, very easy to do. You just put a little bit of dye onto the surface like that, and just with a gentle hand, you know, you don't have to have a heavy, super heavy hand, just gentle. You just basically apply it like that. You know, stay away from the stitching, and just sort of put it on like that. See, just like that. And when that dries, it's going to dry beautifully. We could sit here and watch it. but I think you understand. So what we're going to do is we're just going to go up here. I'm just going to stop the camera and just do this and do this, just, you know, for a little bit easier, steady of a hand, because I got to get into the back there. So we'll do that, and then we'll seal this. We'll seal this whole seat up so it'll be fully and completely protected. Again, you can see the white stitching, nice and white. Looks great. Look at that. Looks really nice. All right. Again, this is still curing up, still drying. We'll be back. Okay, so we're back. As you can see, the seat's looking really nice, like beautiful. Really, really nice. What we're going to do now is we're pretty much going to seal it. This right here is our sealer that comes with the kit, okay? And this is a satin sealer. So the majority of car finishes are a satin finish. However, what we're going to use is we're going to use a different sealer. It's called a matte. A sealer that's, you know, made for matte finishes. That's what it is. It's just that one has a little bit more of a shine, and this one here gets about as matte as you can get without making it look milky or powdery looking. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to apply the matte sealer. Now the other thing is, normally what we do is we spray the sealer on a sponge and then we just gently wipe it on. However, sometimes you can re-wet the surface, and you got to remember these are perforated seats, so they go down in, like, here's the surface of the leather and then it goes down, so this way the suede is exposed on the sides of the perforation, if that makes any sense. When we apply the dye on here, you're going to get a little bit of the dye onto the side of the perforation, which is the sueded area, so it could take a little bit longer to dry and cure. However, we wanted to try to get this done you know, today. It's no big deal. But we want to make sure that it's good and dry and clean and free of any sort of dust or anything like that. But what we're going to do is generally, like, see right here, this stitching is the same color. So what we would recommend is to put the sealer right over top of the stitching. Because this stitching is white, like, you have to understand that this isn't like an amateur job. Because of the fact that it has the white stitching, you literally have to freehand it or put some sort of tape on it that's going to stick to make sure you don't get dye on that. And as you can see here, I mean, it looks great, looks fantastic. Okay, looks fantastic, the stitching right up there. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to apply the sealer around, in and around, all around here, but we're not going to touch the stitching. We're going to try to, because just in case this re-wets the surface, because they're all water-based products. So what happens is when you spray the sealer on here, depending on how much you push down or whatever, you're re-wetting just the surface of the leather. You could have a little bit of black that comes off on the sponge, which is no big deal. It's actually pretty normal, okay? But if we have a little bit of black on the sponge and we wipe it over top of the white stitching, then that could be a problem. So that's the only reason I'm telling you to try to avoid the white stitching. In this case, since it is a highly contrast colored stitching, I would recommend not to put the sealer over it. Here, where it's black, yes, you can put the sealer on it, no problem. Here, you know, you could only put the sealer on it if this is totally dry and cure and no black is coming off on the sponge, and you just gently go over top of it. But again, we could re-wet the leather and wipe it on, and I don't want to, I'm not prepared to do that. It's just going to make more work trying to remove it all. So that's what we're going to do now, and we'll see what happens. I think a little bit of black will come off, maybe not enough, and if no black comes off on the sponge, then we can go over top of the stitching and it won't be a big deal at all. All right, so that's what we're going to do. We're going to apply our matte top coat, which is our matte automotive sealer. Back in a minute. Okay, so here we have our sponge and our sealer, our matte sealer. I'm just going to spray it onto the sponge evenly. Plenty, more than enough, and we're just going to wipe it on the seat. And it did come off a little bit, just like I thought. Probably would take a little bit longer for this to dry and cure perfectly because of the perforations, because they're so deep. But just stay away from the stitching. That's all you need to do. And over here, you can go over top of the stitching, just like that. Here, start up here, go down, all down here. Just like that. Start down here. And see how I'm putting it on sort of in circular motions? And you can wipe the finish down a little bit too if you want, no big deal. I'm just going to stay away from that stitching here. You probably can't see that on the video. And same thing here. This was the bolster area. It gets so much abuse. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to let this dry. As you can see over here, it's already starting to get really matte. Okay, so we're going to let this dry. We'll be back in a minute. Okay, we're back. This area, of course, is dried up. We're losing a little bit of daylight here, but as you can see, it's looking like a brand new seat. So what we're going to do is we're just going to put on a little bit more. Oh, we got some birds behind us. We're going to put a little bit more sealer into the areas that have a lot of abuse. So here we go. Here's some more sealer, and we're just going to wipe it. Oops, can we get that on camera? Just wipe that on, just on that area right there. Just takes so much abuse. We're putting on a brand new sealer, and that's going to protect everything. Okay, so now we're going to let this dry, and you can see here it just looks fantastic. And here is our fully and completely protected. It even feels beautiful. Very soft, very soft. And the stitching is all beautifully white, as you can see. Shining white amongst black. Okay, beautiful. Fully and completely protected using our actually it was a medium size. I mean, you could have done this job easily with a small 2-ounce kit. You could maybe do 2 seats out of a 2-ounce, but you wouldn't have enough for door panels or something like that. Here, all we actually did is clean this, and we put the matte protective top coat on there, and it's great. I mean, you only need dye if you have an area here like this. Remember how this was all worn? This is all worn, and this is starting to get all worn. That's the only time you need dye, is if you're into worn leather. Other than that, do a really good job cleaning it, and then apply the clear protective top coat, and the seat would actually look like this when we're finished. So what we're going to do with this side, you know, you're just going to do the exact same thing with that seat as you did this, but this was pretty tired looking, kind of looked well, we'll show you some before pictures of this anyways. But for this and many other products, go to leathertouchupdye.com or fixyourleather.com. If you have enjoyed our video, please like, subscribe, or even share with your friends.